Hello, I'm Laura Cellier and you're watching Inside the Americas, coming up in the programme. As the Brazil World Cup draws ever closer, we meet the activists using the platform to highlight issues the government would rather forget. Plus, Venezuela's newspaper shortage, stateless management, or a deliberate attempt to silence journalists. And the lottery where the stakes couldn't be higher. We travel to the US clinic where uninsured Americans try their luck just to see a doctor. But we begin in Brazil, which in just a few months' time will be hosting one of the world's biggest sports events. The World Cup will draw attention from across the globe, and activists are using the platform to publicise their campaigns for better public services and an end to corruption. In Sao Paulo, tens of thousands have occupied green space as they demand affordable housing now. Nicholas Ransom and John Dillamore have this report.
It's the end of the day and people are gathering at the New Palestine camp, 20 kilometers from Sao Paulo.
Então, o nosso movimento, ele não luta só por moradia. Ele luta por transporte digno, padrão FIFA. A Dilma não vai dar a FIFA a Copa pro Brasil? Dê moradia pro povo.
They number over 10,000, among them the unemployed, families, children and pensioners, all overwhelmed by the soaring price of rents in Brazil's commercial capital.
You'll see for yourself the number of people here who don't have a place to live.
We need a roof over our heads, not a park. Green spaces are used to raise livestock. We're not animals, we're human beings.
This private land in a protected area was occupied in a single night. A month and a half later, New Palestine is the biggest land occupation Brazil has seen for 10 years. 35,000 people are living here in makeshift shelters. The operation, organised by campaigners for the homeless.
As you can see, people are just about surviving. It gets worse and worse. But everyone is fighting for the same thing: to have a house to bring up their children.
Janaína and her children are living in this 4 square metre space. The young mother earns €260 a month and can no longer afford to pay rent.
We want to pay for our apartment or house. We're not after free housing. We want to buy our own, but I can't rent anymore.
For 9-year-old Adrielle, each night is an ordeal.
Lots of trees fall down, and I'm scared of all the snakes and the frogs you get here.
While the government rushes to finish World Cup projects, tonight Janaína will rally with the thousands at the New Palestine camp, clinging to the hope of an affordable home.
We've previously reported on chronic shortages in Venezuela, where essential items like soap, toothpaste and toilet paper can be hard to come by. Well, now editors complain that a lack of newsprints means they can't get their newspapers out to the public, and some see it as a deliberate attempt by the government to censor them. Olivia Salazar-Winspear has the story.
It's a daily ritual in the streets of Caracas, but it could become a thing of the past. Newspaper deliveries here are jeopardised as there simply isn't enough paper to print them on. Regional and local press have been hit hardest by the shortages at the printers, and there are fears in some quarters that the print run may have to come to a halt.
I've got a crisis of paper supply. I'll have to close the newspaper if I can't solve our paper import problem.
If one of these newspapers stops being circulated, then we're going to have problems. And it would be unprecedented to have a newspaper cease publication due to a lack of paper.
Some publications are trying to stay afloat by trimming the number of pages or cutting down on circulation. At the printers, activity has slowed. A state of affairs that some blame on the government. Import restrictions mean that printers have to get a certificate proving they can't get a local paper supplier. And President Maduro's tightening of currency controls means it's difficult to get dollars to pay for imports. Many editors say it all amounts to government censorship.
This is a regime that constantly discredits, attacks, and puts obstacles in the way of independent journalism. They wish that there were no newspapers. They blame the newspapers for their own failures. And of course, one way to silence the newspapers is not to grant the necessary dollars for importing paper. It's as simple as that.
Venezuela's Globovision television channel has come in for criticism from the authorities and could even be fined for negative reports on the paper shortages, prompting many to reiterate accusations of an attack on press freedoms. In the meantime, the price of paper has soared to 6 times its usual cost.
Imagine a lottery where the top prize is free cancer treatment. Sounds pretty tasteless, but for some people in the United States, this is a reality. Despite recent reforms to the system, many Americans still don't have any health insurance, and some turn to the Arlington Free Clinic, where doctors will see only a fraction of the people who need their help.
F3.
They came to the clinic for a lottery. Here the prize isn't money, a trip or a car, but a doctor's appointment. At precisely 10:30 a.m., the clinic's manager calls on the winners, like this lady who is limping. She and her son have long waited to get a physician's diagnosis.
We've been here since last year. We are happy.
One Tuesday every month, about 150 people come to the Arlington Free Clinic. Up to 25 win and get free consultations.
I am retired and my income is so small that I can no longer afford.
To participate in the lottery, the candidates have to live in Arlington and to have been U.S. citizens for at least 1 year. America's health care isn't free. About 40 million people aren't insured.
There are many that will not. They will fall in either the coverage gap or they won't be eligible for other reasons. So they're, even with the Affordable Care Act, we will continue doing what we're doing.
The clinic relies on donations and volunteers. 570 doctors, medical and administrative personnel come to the clinic once they finish their day at the hospital.
We have a very strong health system, but we also have many people. We have over 300 million people in the population, and there's new people coming all the time. And so there's always a need.
V1.
Those who weren't lucky this time can come back, try over and over again until they win.
Well, weather misery continued this week for millions of people in the United States. An icy blizzard hit the northeast, dumping 45 centimetres of snow overnight. Well, that meant travel chaos in and around major cities like New York, Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia. Sanam Chantier has more.
Times Square blanketed with snow. Picture perfect for New York's tourists. But the big freeze is not exactly news for the local residents. Temperatures reached record lows earlier in January when Hercules' Arctic air froze the city. This time around, the fast-moving storm hammered roads and paralyzed airports, with New York, Washington and Philadelphia being the worst hit. After 3,000 airline flights were cancelled, travelers were left wondering when they would get home.
It's canceled. We're trying to get on for tomorrow night, and that one's been canceled while we've been on hold.
We just arrived a few minutes ago to find out that the flight was canceled. It is frustrating to get here without having gotten an email to advise us of that.
In Washington on Tuesday, the city looked deserted. All federal government offices shut their doors. Even the White House took a snow day. The schools across the region faced the same dilemma. They closed for an extra day. And those that didn't plan to send students home early.
So today the school was shut down and a lot of the restaurants in the town are closing early.
But the big chill wasn't all that bad for everyone. This group of tourists from Florida posed with their first snowman.
It's awesome. We love it. We don't get this ever in Florida, so.
And these young children braved the cold in return for a snowball fight and a sledge race.
Well, that's it for this edition of Inside the Americas. Thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.